All right, yesterday, if you remember, we learned, let me see, let me just get the settings right over here. Oh, yeah. So yesterday, we learned about the garments that Aaron of the Kohen and all the other priests, especially Aaron, because Aaron was the high priest, so he had special, more garments than everybody else. The garments that they wore. And what is exactly this idea of the garments? What does it mean to us? What does it mean to us today that Aaron had garments in the Holy Temple? We don't have the Holy Temple. We don't have Aaron. We don't have the garments. We don't have any of this. But of course, Hasidut comes to tell us that the Torah was not just a book written by people, or it was written a history book, even though it is history. I mean, it certainly does talk about what actually happened. But the main thing of the Torah is that it's written by God, and God is creating the whole world, and just like He's creating the whole world all the time. So the Torah is the blueprint for this constant creation. What we're supposed to do with the world, God, because God created the world in order to give us a responsibility that we should fix it up. So what are we supposed to do? So the Holy Temple is an integral part of the creation. And it's a thing that if it doesn't exist actually physically, so for sure it exists spiritually, or let's even say more than spiritually, it exists godly, because God is creating the spiritual. So it's something that's eternal. If you do what God wants, so then you're above the spiritual. You're above, you want to call it above the spiritual. You're connected to the creator. The spiritual is just part of the creation. And so we want to, connect ourselves to the creator and connect ourselves to this eternal holy temple, which is spoken about in the Torah. Now, of course, this is only for the Jews. This thing is only for the Jews, but the Jews are for everybody else. The Jews are for the whole rest of the world. So, like I said before, the Jews are public servants. Public servant, like the mayor, he's above everybody, but he's essentially he's below everybody because he's serving the public. The public, everyone in the public is above him. He's supposed to have them on his mind all the time. The same thing the Jewish people. The Jewish people are supposed to have the world on their mind all the time. Okay, so it says by the garments, it says in the garments that one second. No, this is not right. This is talking about the oil. One second. Here we go. Oh, shalom. In Hebrew. 1 minute, 1 minute. You have to make a couple of small adjustment over here. Next page. Next page. Here it is. Here it is. Big Day Kodesh. Okay. So this is the holy garments. And it says, who should make the garments? So it says, you, Moses, you should make the garments for Aaron. And then afterwards it says that only the artisans, the special people, they should make the garments. They should make it. And then the same sentence says, V'asu is big day Aaron, and they should make the garments of Aaron. This implies all the Jewish people. So it seems that three people are making whatever his groups are making these. One is Moses is making them, and the other one is the tailors, the holy tailors are making them, and the other one is all the Jewish people. So how many garments do they have? What are they supposed to do? So obviously this is somehow or other referring to the spiritual aspect of these garments. So let's see, let's get this word. Here it is. It's over here. Yeah, okay. All right. So we learned yesterday that Aaron in general brings this big love to the Jewish people, big love. It is a commandment in Judaism to love God. You have to love God, and you have to love God with all of your heart and with all of your soul and with all of your might. It's part of the motto of Judaism, Shema Yisrael. Hear Israel, God is our God, God is one. Hear means understand. So you have to use your understanding to come to love God. But the only way you can really love God is if you have inspiration. You have inspiration. I mean, a person can love money because you see money and you see what money does, right? You see what money does and you see what, but how can you love God? You don't see God, and you don't see what God does. It could be just nature doing it. Who says that God is doing anything? Who says that God even exists? We're supposed to maybe you can believe God exists, but to love God. Love God means you have to really feel that God is doing something for you, that He's creating you, that He's giving us life, that He's took us out of Egypt, gave us the Torah. Not so easy to do, especially when you consider that the Torah tells us that the Jewish people, when they really did see God take them out of Egypt and give them manna from heaven and split the sea and give them the Torah, the Jewish people that actually did see it, they worshiped the golden calf just 40 days after they received the Torah. So loving God is not a thing which can be taken for granted. I mean, a person sees money. If he's a normal person, he values money. Maybe some people overvalue money, but a normal person values money. They don't have money, just throw it in the street, which is not the case. God. God is not a thing that you automatically value. And even when you do see God, you can just throw it in the street. They didn't care. They worshiped the golden calf, idolatry. So if so, the idea of loving God, it has to have some sort of an inspiration. It says that was the idea of Abraham, and that's the idea of Aaron. Abraham opened up the door, spiritual door, the spiritual pipelines, so that it was possible. It was not only possible, it was essential inside of every Jew, a love of God. Every Jew has it. And he also gave the ability when we think about certain things about God, that we can feel the reality of God, because God is real. That's the point. God really is creating. That's a fact. The fact is God is creating us. Fact is God's creating the world. Fact is God took us out of Egypt. The fact is, do we feel this fact? Do we feel that this fact is more important than ourselves? Right? When this fact that God exists is challenged, you need money, and all of a sudden you have a chance to steal money. Right? You have a chance to lie. You'll make $100, $1,000, $1 million. You're not supposed to deny them. You're not supposed to lie. They tie a person up to the stake and they say, either kiss the cross or we'll burn you at the stake. That's what they did in the Inquisition. And a lot of Jews said, I don't, that was the whole story of Purim. Just deny you're a Jew and we'll let you live. The decree was to kill all the Jews. Not one Jew denied he was Jewish. That makes no sense. That was given to us, let's say, by Abraham. That feeling, the certainty that God exists. Of course, the world covers it over, and so we have to use our minds and our power of defiance in order to feel this truth again. Okay, that was Abraham. He gave us a love of God that comes from thinking about the world. But Aaron brought a higher type of love. Aaron brought a more essential type of love of God, a deep, burning, essential love of God, which is even greater than that of Abraham, that Abraham brought. Abraham brought some sort of a type of love of God, which depends on us mostly. And then it awakens up this feeling. But Aaron's thing is like almost 100% gift. It's a gift from God that you just suddenly feel the oneness of God. That's what it says. You have to love God. Okay. So this is what we learned. Yes. All right. So we said that by means of what we do in this world, this arouses God to give us inspiration. The love that we arouse in this world to serve God, that's more connected to Abraham. The reaction that God gives us from above, that's more connected to Aaron. Both were on the side of love, to feel God's love. Okay, now let's go to the next page. 1 second. 1 minute. Let's see how we do this over here. Here we go. Okay, this is where we got up to. All right, I don't remember what we got up to yesterday. I can have a look. Let's see. 1 second. I have a look. I don't have my. Yeah, here it is. All right, we should have done this before. Let's do it. Let's go. But kasher and when. Now the Rebbe is not just going to tell you what we have to do, but he's also giving us certain advice on how to do it, how to think about God in such a way that you come to love God. Now, again, loving God does not preclude being a normal person in the world. Exactly the opposite. It rids us of false loves. So you don't get too attached to money. You don't get too attached to the world that's around us. You don't get too attached to what people say and what people think and what people this. You don't get too attached to your negative thoughts. You can still have negative thoughts, but there'll be less negative thoughts. And because it's not your world, it's God's world. So the more that a person realizes this and starts to feel it, God is healing us. God is creating us, and God cares about us, and he's feeding us, and he's providing for us. God himself personally, as that puts a person closer to the truth and empowers him to be more active and proactive in the world. So it says, when a person deepens his mind in this, namely what? The greatness of God, the goodness of God, and he puts it on his heart, Azai, then, Ye Hashem Shamayim Mitahev, then the name of God will be loved by means of you. Not that only that you will love, but you will cause others to love. Now, who is this others? We'll see. Sheyeh Giloi Ahava Elyona. The other that you will make love God is yourself. Let me explain. It says in Shema Yisrael, we say it every morning. Good morning, Arisa. We say every morning in Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Ve'ahavta, and you will love God with all of your heart. One of the explanations is ve'ahavta, that you will cause others to love God. Ve'ahavta, that you will cause love to be in the world. Simple meaning is people will see you, that you love God, and they'll realize, number one, either you're out of your mind, you're simply not normal, or maybe you sense something that other people don't sense. And then people will start to realize maybe you sense the reason you love God is, let's say, basic reason, because God is creating you. And people will say, hey, one second, well, God is creating me too. And this will make God loved by everyone. Everyone will feel that I am not the ultimate reality. I am created reality, and God is creating me. People don't like to think outside of themselves, that there's God creating me. But it's the truth. It's the truth, and usually people like the truth. So the truth is that, so it says, the name of God will be loved by means of you. Others will love God. But here the Rebbe is saying something a little bit different. The name of God will be loved. What do you mean loved? That God will force you to love God even more. If you love the Creator, if you love the Almighty Creator, and you realize how good He is, then that will arouse God. Because you're loving God. Then that arouses God. It arouses the Creator to give you a blessing that you have more love. Shem Hashemayim mitahev, it will be love. Sheyeh gilui ahava, there'll be love from above. Shora umitgala b'nefesh, in your soul, b'bechinas ria, that you'll actually see and feel. She'alev ro'eh, that the heart will see godliness. So the next time you're driving in your car and somebody cuts you off, and the car, instead of yelling and screaming at him, right? So the only person in your world is not just him. He cut me off. There's him and God. And who's greater? God is creating him. God is also creating me. So why would God want this person to cut me off? So the answer to that is, I don't know. But God did it. And he knows what he's doing. And I don't know what he's doing. And God is also creating me. So God is pretty good. So whatever reason it certainly is not to inspire me or to provoke me to go against God and to get mad. Get mad at him. You want to get mad at God. I can't get mad at God. God is creating me. He's giving me everything for free. How can I get mad at him? Right? It's like somebody gives you $1 million and he steps on your shoe. Say, hey, watch it, buddy. You don't know you're stopping with your shoes. That's a shoe shine is is $5. I just gave you $1 million. God is creating us, but yet the problem is to feel it. To feel it is not just giving us mental tricks to do to avoid getting angry. The Rebbe is telling us the truth. The Gilui Zen, but in order to have this, you have to have some sort of an inspiration from above. You have to have some sort of a revelation, a revelation of godliness. The Gilui, this revelation in your soul is because of because of what you did. You tried to love God. You love God with all of your heart, with Shnei Yitzarech, with even your selfish impulse. Shagami Yitzar Hora, that even your selfish impulse will be forced. Okay, so first of all, let's say you listen to this class. Let's say I listen to this class, right? People cut me off. I get mad. I can tell you not to do it, but I don't do it. So I listen to this class and I think, wow, yes, Bolton, man, you're doing this class. Come on, God is creating you. Don't get mad and everything. And then yes, right. So I driving home and all of a sudden somebody cuts me off. Because what do I do now? I think, one second, I just finished telling everybody in this class, you're not supposed to get mad because God creates you and all there is God. So maybe I should try doing it myself. So I hold myself back and I don't get angry at the person. I realize nothing happened. Nothing bad happened. I didn't get angry at it. I didn't let him have it. He's going to get away with that. Yeah, let him get away with it. And maybe the next time I can say, you cut me off or something. Maybe not. Maybe not. Let the guys, maybe he's not going to accept in my reproof anyway, but at least I don't destroy myself. At least I don't do what's against God. You're not supposed to get mad. And then if I really do this and I start to do it, not just because being angry is bad, but because if you really love God, you're not going to get angry. You'll be practical. You'll do what's practical, but you're not going to do it through anger. Anger usually drops your IQ about 90% when you get angry. But not because of any of those practical reasons, stoic reasons, what they call them. Because loving God is creating everything. He knows what he's doing. I have to learn the lesson from this. God must be sending me some sort of a message. When I do that, that's what I arouse in myself. Then God himself reacts. That you won't just have one. All you'll have is just one heart for God in heaven. What people do to me is not my business. It's God's business. There's no reason for me to get mad or to have lust or to cheat or to lie. It's not my world. I just have one heart to God. That's from our own. Like it says, I don't want to be just with you in the world. I don't want to be me and you. There should only be you. Like the rabbis say, batal ratzoncha, you should negate your will in front of God. Shelo yeheh lo chafetz v'ratzon acher, you shouldn't have any other desire, liot poseach al shtei sifim, to be stepping on two door entrances. This thing about entrances, Elijah the prophet in Israel, if you read the book of Kings, the book of Judges, so you see that basically the same thing that happened with the Jewish people at Mount Sinai, and they 40 days after they worshipped the golden calf, this story repeated itself over and over and over and over again. And if it wasn't for the fact that God's love for the Jewish people is how do you say, there was a good word, I just skipped the word, skipped my mind, is doesn't depend on anything. How can I forget this word? Anyway, the unconditional, wow, it's a simple word. The love of God that God has for the Jews is unconditional. It's like a father with his son. His son might do terrible things, but his father just hoping come back. So that's the way it's been. He destroyed the first temple, destroyed the second temple. But the love of God for the Jewish people is unconditional. Not like what the church says, God left the Jews or everything like that. That's taking all the negative sentences from the prophets. And the fact is, God will never leave the Jewish people. But the Jewish people know this, and they misuse it. They make a lot of trouble, right? So one of the times was in the time of Elijah the prophet. And the Jewish people then, they were worshiping the Baal. Wow, this was also under the influence of Jezebel, and all these the terrible. Anyways, they were worshiping this sun god. It was a god of the sun. I guess that's okay. So the sun god. So Elijah the prophet comes and he says, "Okay, listen, we're going to make a duel, right? Duel. The prophets of the Baal, they'll build a big altar, and I'll build an altar, and you bring a sacrifice, and I'll bring a sacrifice, and we'll both pray. Whoever brings fire from heaven, he's right." Okay, so the Baal, everybody believed in the Baal. It was very popular and it was successful. It worked, but they worked at the Baal and they were rich and they were everything. And Elijah the prophet was alone. He was alone. So anyway, it comes out to that they built their big altar and they had, what is it? I forget the number, 200 priests or 500 priests, whatever it was. I have to look and see, I forgot. And all the Jewish people, they were with the Baal people. They were with the Baal. And Elijah the prophet, he was alone and he brought his offering. And he said to the Jewish people, he said to them this, how long will you step on two doorsteps, two entrances? What do you mean two entrances? The Jewish people believed in God. There was never a time in the history of Judaism that the Jewish people did not believe in God, except for like the last 300 years, something like that. With the advent of Spinoza and all these other people, they didn't believe in the God. Well, the God of Israel is not like every other God. The God of Israel cares about everybody. He gave the Torah at Mount Sinai. He personally cares that we should do the commandments. All the commandments are very exact. That's the God of Israel. He cares about all the details. He cares about all the details. And the Jewish people always believed in this. But on the other hand, they also like to have a good time. And the Jewish people had desire to worship idols. And they did it. They did it. So here there was the first temple was there. The first temple was there. So comes along as the Elijah the prophet, and he says, "Okay, Jewish people, stop worshiping God and the Baal. If God is right, worship Him. If the Baal is right, worship Him. Don't worship both. Don't worship both." And the Lubavitcher Rebbe asked the question, "How can he? Those words come out of Elijah the prophet's mouth? If the Baal is right, worship him." How could he say that? He should have said the Baal is a big lie. Don't worship him, right? But he knew the Jewish people, they wanted to worship the Baal. They liked idolatry is fun. Idolatry is fun. People worship. You have 2.5 billion Christians in the world. Idolatry is fun. Idolatry is how do you say it's appealing. It's appealing. It's comforting. It's all the good things. So he said to the Jewish people, stop worshiping God and the Baal. Stop both together. Don't worship two. Now we do the same thing. I do the same thing. I do the same thing. You worship God and you also worship yourself. I care about what God wants, but I also care about me. Right? Okay, that's natural. But sometimes when it comes into a conflict, which one do I choose? And sometimes not exactly me. Take the example of getting cut off in the street. Right? I know God doesn't want me to get mad, but somebody cuts me off and I get mad. It's a lot less than it used to be. Right? But I still get angry. Someone cuts me off. Okay, maybe now there's times I have to admit that there's times that I don't get angry at all. I mean, I remember what I'm saying. And so there are times. But still, the fact is we worship ourselves and because God, when a person controls himself, when he throws his soul away, he really wants to lust, he wants to lie, he wants to cheat, he wants to go after his desires. He really wants to do it. He's done it before and it works and it's good. But he realizes that God doesn't want to do it, so he throws himself away. The Ratzon and his desires in the physical world, the Yasim Alav Libo, when he puts on God his heart and his spirit, then God reacts. God reacts. It's like reflecting waters. Then God will give you an inspiration. Love from above, Shora Mitkala, will be revealed. Like it says, love pushes away the flesh. A person loves someone, he does crazy things. The same thing God, because he loves the Jews, so he pushes himself to a side. God is supposed to be infinite. He's not supposed to have anything to do with the world. But when God sees how much we love him, so God changes his nature as well, and he starts to interest himself in the world. Then God, he contracts himself, he articulates himself, le'ir, to shine inside of me and you, big love, begiloi, in a revealed way on his soul. Sheyushpa, love that will flow on us with a great flow of love. Now you can see this. This is not easy. It's much easier to worship a golden calf or to worship a person, right? To worship a human being or to worship a spirit or something like that. Much easier. You don't have to have all this effort. You don't have to put yourself on a side. You just think, what is more valuable, right? What is more practical for me? I'm a big sinner. I'm going to this, and then I believe in this a person. I got a star, whatever it is, and that will guide me, and it will take me, and it will cure me, and that's easy. That's easy, and that's why it's so popular, and that's why it was popular among the Jewish people, because a person feels himself and just naturally grab at anything that promises him some sort of a comfort or profit or success or whatever. It says the Rebbe, okay, but that's not Judaism. That's what Elijah the prophet said. Don't be on two doorsteps, the doorstep to the church and the doorstep to God, to God. Can't be on both, right? He says, why not? It's better than nothing, isn't it? So the Rebbe, no. That's the Rebbe said, no. It's better to worship idolatry and at least know that you're on that path. And don't comfort yourself. So listen, at least I put on tefillin, at least I do something, right? Okay, so I lose my temper. So once in a while I lie. So once in a while I cheat. Once in a while I go this, but I keep Shabbos. I have this. So you're doing two together. It says the Rebbe, that's because a person is not really devoting himself totally to the truth. And when you do devote yourself to the truth, which is not easy to do, then God helps you. And there's a Gili Yatsum, a tremendous revelation of, you feel, of truth. Ad Shiagila Milo Madrega, to the level of Bakol Meodecha, loving God with all of your being. This is what's called great love, Ahava Rabbah. This is love which comes only from an inspiration from above. This is higher than a person can bear. This is the level of Aaron. That's Aaron. Aaron is the Shishvina de Matronisa. Aaron is the escort of the queen. In other words, we, the Jewish people, we're the queen. And Aaron escorts us, elevates us, lifts up. Shu Magbia, that he elevates Umenaseh and raises the Jewish people ad Roma Milos to the highest of highs. Like it says, Elu Masa'ei B'nei Yisrael Biad Moshe. These are the journeys of the Jewish people by Moses and Aaron. Aaron, it says Aaron and Moses, Asher Omar Hashem, God said, Hotziat B'nei Yisrael, they took the Jewish people out of Egypt. What does it mean? Lamale Mitzav Al Tzavotam, on their hosts. It is above all the hosts, above even the source of their soul. To lift the Jewish people to the source of their soul. Now, this is the thing that's happening right now, and I mean, especially in Israel, it's happening. And the Jewish people are starting to realize that God is really very good, and He's not this, religious, spiritual being, and you have to live the world. You're not thinking. You're thinking about going to heaven, and you're a sinful person, and God is going to take care of you, and God is. They're not thinking about that at all. All of a sudden, now the Jewish people in Israel, I can see it with my eyes. You see it. The Jewish people that start to realize, hey, God is really very practical. He's really very good. He really wants us to be in this world. He really is creating us here. God is with us. He's giving us eyes and ears and nose and mouth, and He wants us to use them. He's given us talents, and He wants us to reveal them. More and more Jews are revealing this in Israel. It's really something quite amazing. It's quite amazing. More and more Jews are starting to realize the God of Israel. The God of Israel. He creates the whole world. He cares about the world. He creates all the worlds. And when a person realizes how infinitely good God is, then he starts to serve God. And then he gets what do we call it? The reward. Hits the jackpot from our own. And everybody, all of a sudden, you won the lottery. Suddenly you get a thing you never dreamed of, right? How does it work in the lottery? You pay a ticket for it. I don't think I ever did it. You buy a ticket for $5 and you win $15 million. Okay, but only one person does. Here the Rebbe is saying that everybody can. Even more, everybody will. That's the idea of the Mashiach. Mashiach is going to open up everybody's heart so that everyone starts to turn their attention to the Creator. They gave us the Torah, and then the Creator reacts. But this the level of love is it requires kli, a vessel, a lavush, and a garment. Remember, that's what we're talking about, the garments of Aaron. It requires a garment. Kama shetishra v'tidlabesh, how much can rest and be clothed this love, shetavoli yadei, that it can become revealed, b'pol mamash, actually. That was the big problem of the giving of the Torah. God took the Jews out of Egypt. 50 days later, they had prepared themselves. That they did this thing called Sfirat Omer, that every day they prepared themselves for receiving the Torah, and how much they prepared themselves, it wasn't sufficient. It held on as long as Moses was there. But as soon as they thought that Moses wasn't with them anymore, Moshe wasn't with them, then they came up with all sorts of weird, bizarre ideas that we have to worship. What does it say in the Ten Commandments? I am God that took you out of Egypt. Don't worship any other God. What did they say about the golden calf? This is the God that took us out of Egypt. This is the God that took you out of Egypt. They got all confused, but they all got confused together in unison. In unison, they all got the same confusion to worship the golden calf. Says the Rebbe, it's not too late. Don't worry about it. God, they didn't make God stop loving them. Right? There's always Moses. Moses in every generation, even though you can't see him, he's there. Moses is there. That's why the Jewish people sinned with the golden calf, because they thought Moses was there, was not there, that he wasn't coming down from outside. But he did come down. So in every generation, there has to be somebody like Moses, whether he's there actually, whether he's there spiritually, but it has to be. So it says, therefore, the Jewish people have to have garments. You can get this big love of God like they did at Mount Sinai, but they didn't have the garments. They couldn't integrate it into their day-to-day life. It wasn't enough connection to God to make them not worship idols. Right? Like in my example, a person doesn't have enough love of God that he doesn't get angry when someone cuts him off when he's driving. Right? Loving God is wonderful, but cutting me off, he really did it. He really cut me off. I almost got me into an accident. That really did. All those thoughts about there's something more real than God. What's more real than God? Me. He cut me off. If this guy cuts somebody else off, I don't get so angry. Only if he cuts me off. Right? Why? Because I'm more real than everything. That whole world is all me. But that's a lie. That's not so. The fact is, I'm being created. Okay, so I know it, and I give classes about it, and I talk about it, but I don't have the vessels. I'm not open to receive it all the time. So you have to have our vessels. So that's the vessels of Aaron. That's the garments of Aaron. Ki ein or below kli. There cannot be any light, any inspiration of God, unless there is a vessel to accept it. And it says, Zakin Aaron, it says that's the beard of Aaron. It's a psalm of King David. What is it? Psalm 1. What is it? 129. Let's have a look. 129. It's one of the Shir Amalos, right near the end of the Shir Amalos. 129. Give me a look. 1 second. 1 minute. 1 minute. The Shir Amalot begins from 120 to so it must be 130. 1 second. It's one. No. There we go. 1 second. 1 minute. 1 minute. 133. 133. Sorry. So it says it says. It says the oil. Aaron is anointed with the oil, and it flows down the beard of Aaron on his garments. That's what it says in Psalm 133. Have a look. And it says that Aaron is anointed with that flows the oil of anointing goes down the beard of Aaron, and it goes on his garments. Midotav, his garments. Means like mido bad or mirnasei bad. These are the garments. Torah, and what are the garments for this love and this love of God that we're receiving? What's this garment that we're supposed to put on? Torah and the commandments. The Torah and the commandments, they are the garments for this love. Because this love is drawn down, this love, this amazing revelation and feeling of God's goodness is revealed from the lav mikol, the level of God, which is above any sort of measurement or qualities or love or anything that we can. It's God. We're talking about God over here. Lamaila migeder chachma, above any spiritual levels of what we call chachma, life. This love that we're getting from God is something from the essence of God. It's above any sort of measurement or Kabbalistic level or word or name. Everyone is privy to it. Everyone. Here we're talking about especially the Jewish people, but it's going to be revealed everywhere. It says, but this love is higher than even God's what we call chachma. Chachma is the highest of the 10 sefirot. This is higher than anything. But it can be, this love of God is in the Torah and the commandments. That they are the will and the wisdom of God from this level of ant chachim below b'chachma, that God, you are wise and know known wisdom. So the garments of Aaron, as far as we're concerned nowadays, and each one of us has this aspect of Aaron, that we can arouse this tremendous essence, goodness of God to be revealed. From God's essence, we have to have vessels. We have to have garments in order to contain this, to be useful, so we don't make the mistake that the Jews made on Mount Sinai. What are the garments for God's revelation? It says, like we said before, like these people who win the lottery. So the guy wins like $50 million, and then 2 months later they find him dead from an overdose of who knows what, or so his wife killed him, or somebody killed him. He doesn't know what to do with the money. He buys 5 Lamborghinis or something like that, and he realizes that he still has, like $100 million left. He doesn't know what to do with the money. Everybody sees he's rich. So he has to have the proper vessel. What's the proper vessels for a person who wins to this? He has to get an accountant. He has to get a lawyer. He has to take advice before he takes the money out. That makes vessels. The same thing is with this level of love of God, which is infinitely greater than $100 million or whatever money. But it also has to have very strong vessels. So what are the vessels? Torah and the commandments. When a person realizes that the Torah comes from God, the same source where this tremendous love comes from, where all existence comes from, the same thing with the commandments, and the Torah and the commandments are for us to do, then the Torah and the commandments become garments for this tremendous love that God gives us. This love, which is translated in simple language to happiness. A person is simply happy. He's happy to wake up in the morning. He's happy to be alive. He's happy every second that he can do what God wants. He's happy for every second that he can ask God for forgiveness when he didn't do what God wants. And that's the idea of the Torah and the commandments. That's a devorim ma'ilu asher anochi mitzavecha. These are the words that I am commanding you today. That's in the Shema Yisrael. In the Shema Yisrael, we're going after the Shema Yisrael prayer. These words which I command you today should be on your heart. That there can be revelation of the level of Anochi Misha Anochi. This is by means of a Devorim Elu. This is by means of the words of Torah and the commandments of the Torah. Therefore, it says you should speak in the words of Torah and not in meaningless words. Okay, so what did we learn today? We'll stop here for today, but a moment. We learned, number one, God reacts to what we do. And if we love God, then God loves us. We're finite. God is infinite. So our finite love for God brings an infinite love of God as a reaction. That's what Aaron did when he worked in the Holy Temple, when he took the Jews out of Egypt. And we're privy to that right now. But you have to have garments. What are the garments? The garments are Torah and commandments. Without Torah and commandments, everything goes. Without Torah and commandments, there's no order in the world. No order in the world. Just create total, how do you say, anarchy. Woke. It's anti-life. There's no vessels. So the whole essence of what the Torah and the commandments are, they are vessels for the love of God, for God's revelation in the world. That was mainly the Holy Temple. The Holy Temple, every Jew is a Holy Temple. So our job is supposed to be to reveal the truth in every detail in the world. But in order to do that, we have to have the proper vessels. That was provided for by Aaron, the garments of Aaron in the Holy Temple, as we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. But meanwhile, what are you supposed to do at home? think about how good God is, how God's creating everything, how God is creating us, huh? How God personally took the Jews out of Egypt, how He gave them the Torah personally, and the Torah is eternal. He's giving us right now. When you start to direct your mind to that and how lucky we are just to be created, and even more, we're even more lucky that God is giving us responsibility to fix up the world according to the Torah and the commandments, then we start to make ourselves into a holy temple. Then things start to get, how do you say, dynamic, happy world. As we'll talk about more tomorrow. Now let's do the Yom Yom, the Var Malchut.